people. I am your host, Lexi Inks, and welcome to the relaunch of Lex Be Real, a sex and dating podcast all about the 3 R's: real, relatable relationships. So, surprise, I am relaunching LBR after almost 3 fucking years on a hiatus. That hiatus was originally not intentional. For those of you who know, I have been going back and forth for almost the past 3 years trying to figure out whether I wanted to go all in and commit to really relaunching and revamping this podcast, or if I wanted to just kind of let it go. But it's, I've sat with it for a long time and it's always been in the back of my mind. And some of you, actually a lot of you, may have noticed that on social media recently I've been posting a ton of sex and dating content. And I realize now I'm kind of kicking myself for not posting sex and dating content on social media way earlier, for, the past year and a half that I've been posting consistently, especially on TikTok, because this has been my jam for the longest time. For any new listeners, I am a sex and relationships journalist by trade. I've been writing primarily about sex and relationships for outlets like Bustle, Cosmopolitan, Women's Health, Refinery29, Glamour, BBC, Pop Sugar, The Every Girl, so many others. And that has just kind of been my core, beat topic area, whatever you want to call it. And I ended up becoming, because of that, a certified sexologist. And so I do have some actual professional expertise in the area as well. And this podcast was originally kind of my love child project from all of the interviews that I've done with different experts in the field that are much more highly credentialed and educated than I am. And also just kind of giving my own takes on the modern dating landscape, trends and new discourse on social media and online, and just how people are dating, why people are dating, and the ways that it impacts our lives. And now I'm really ready to jump back in. I think this new focus on sex and dating content on my social media has really inspired me. I felt really fired up by it. It really is what lights me up, and it's just the topic that I'm the most interested in, curious about, intrigued by, all of the things. So I'm super excited to be relaunching, and I'm so excited and so happy to have you guys here and back listening to the pod. For just a quick brief overview, I'm going to be producing and releasing 1 weekly episode every week, and that's going to be on Sundays. So I am recording this on Monday so that I can get my ass on the editing job this week so I can make sure I launch it in time. But I will be sharing some clips here and there as previews, little snippets before the episode's release, so you'll get to kind of get a sneak peek into what each episode is about. And like I said, I used to actually interview. I've had a couple fantastic interviews with amazing experts in the sex and dating space. You can check out the older episodes from 2023. They are all available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or whatever, your preferred podcast platform is. And we will definitely be doing a lot more interviews just like those with some incredible guests. So I'm so excited to, keep you guys posted on who I'm going to have on the show coming up here in the next couple episodes. But in the meantime, for those who don't know, I haven't posted a ton about it on social media because I've only recently gotten back to a regular cadence of being connected online and plugged in. I've been up until the past 2 weeks pretty unplugged in terms of my digital life, because I actually right now currently am recording this in a camper on my parents' land in rural Georgia. They have 120 acres of land in Georgia in the middle of fucking nowhere. And I live in a camper right now that my parents very generously purchased for me and my 2 dogs, Remy and Milo, to stay in. For anyone who was listening to the pod 3 years ago, you will know that I had Remy then, and I still have him now. He's alive and well, thank God. But Milo is a new addition, so I have a second dog now. And I'm temporarily, just for a while, staying with my parents and just living in this cozy, cute little camper, enjoying my freelance life and making lots of content, living rent-free, which I gotta say is really nice. And in exchange, I make my parents a nice dinner every night. It's been pretty fun, to be honest. The dogs are loving it. We spend tons of time outside every single day. And yeah, so I am so excited to be in such a good place where I really feel like so committed and just ready to dive into this podcast. I have never felt this focused and determined, and I feel like with all of the new content that I'm creating in terms of writing and social media and the podcast, I really have found my groove. And my word for this year, when people make like New Year's resolutions, I don't really do that anymore, but I do kind of like to have some kind of theme or word for the year. And my word for 2026 is absolutely focus. I have been telling all of my friends and family that I really want to hone in on the, couple things that I really want, because I tend to be, with my ADHD, someone who does like a million things at once. I'm constantly looking for new projects, new things to try, new freelance clients, new roles, new gigs, new hobbies, all of those things. And I think I want to just really narrow my focus and like pick like 3 things max and just go all in on those for the rest of the year. And so this podcast is absolutely one of those things. So you will be hearing a lot from me on the podcast and about the podcast. So get ready to be annoyed with me, annoyed as fuck. But in the meantime, please feel free to follow me on social media, because on my personal page is where I will be posting all of these updates for now. I think I'm gonna be doing a little bit of construction zone time on the LBR Instagram. So you can follow that if you want. It's at Lex Be Real podcast. But until I'm ready to kind of migrate over there, I'm going to be posting all of the updates and clips and things like that on my main account. So that is Lexi Inks on Instagram and Lexi.inks on TikTok. Okay, enough yapping. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, or for my sister, who is now, like, for all intents and purposes, a vegan, the tofu and veggies. Let's get into the tofu and veggies of this episode, which is, how do you know, or how did you know you were in love? And I think my feelings about love and dating in general, the dating landscape at large, have definitely changed a lot in the past couple years, especially since I started the podcast initially, and largely due to the current socio-political climate. I think it's pretty understandable that dating, in my eyes, has changed a lot, and especially as someone who not only creates content about that digitally, but also reports on it as a journalist, and I interview people, and I have to get a lot of thoughts, and I have to get a lot of expert input. Things have really changed, and that's been proven time and time again, and all of the different perspectives that I've been hearing from both, regular folk and from experts, and in my own eyes. Like, I have taken a big step back from the dating world, not necessarily professionally, but personally. And I think, again, with the climate that we're living in, it is different. And I think sometimes I find myself not as interested in dating, but I absolutely have to say that I still see the value in partnership and the value in having a life companion, a life partner, and all of the benefits that come along with that. Not even just logistically, but like emotionally, having that security, that safety, having like someone to be your rock in tough times, all of those things. I do still believe in love, and I love love. And I think that it's such a beautiful thing to find, your person. But I think, again, like, things have definitely changed. And so I wanted to, for this first episode, ask some people who are in love or have been in love about how they knew that they were in love, because I think that's such an interesting and multi-dimensional topic. Because when you ask someone, like, how did you know you were in love, everyone's so different. Like, some people will be like, I just looked at them and I knew, there's love at first sight. Some people find love through friendship. A friendship turns into a romantic relationship. Some people, it takes months or even a year plus to fall in love and know for sure. So I think everyone's so different, and I love crowdsourcing these stories and these opinions from people. So I asked on my social media a bunch of people for their stories about how they fell in love, how they knew they were in love, and all of those things. So I am so excited to be sharing some of those stories today. But first, I wanted to give you some insight into my own experience with this, because I think I have a pretty unique and interesting story when it comes to one of the most vivid times I remember realizing that I was in love with someone. So this was an ex of mine in which I joined a polyamorous relationship. And a lot of you know that I've written a lot about it. So it's definitely not a secret that I have experience in polyamory, but it's actually honestly one of the things that led me to becoming a sex and relationships writer and a certified sexologist. That experience in my life has definitely been as tumultuous and honestly hard to look back on sometimes as that particular relationship was. My experience with polyamory was generally a very positive one outside of that relationship lens, if that makes sense. But I remember so vividly the moment that I realized I was in love with that particular ex. So we had been building a very close friendship for a few months. This was years ago, by the way. So this is not any time recently. I was in my mid-20s. So we had been friends for a couple months, hanging out kind of one-on-one over time, and feelings definitely developed. And then we started dating, and maybe a month or so after we started dating, it was probably almost exactly a month after we went on our first official date, I went on a different date with somebody else because, again, polyamorous relationship. He was in his apartment and he was sick. We weren't living together at that point, obviously. He had been living with one of his other partners at that time, one of my metamors, and he was sick at home, and he knew that I was going on a date, but I didn't share many details about it. Just kind of gave him a general idea that I was in his neighborhood on a date. That's all he knew. And he was like, I'm super, super, super sick. I don't want to get you sick. So, because I had mentioned that I wanted to see him afterward. But he's like, you can come over, obviously, but I really don't want to get you sick. And I was like, you know what? I don't mind. So I go on this date with this guy. He was so sweet, so kind, so emotionally intelligent, funny, witty, cool. He did work in the activism space. He was just very... Honestly, we were so compatible. There was an instant connection, an instant spark. He definitely noticed it right away and was like, wow, I feel like we're really connecting. This is really cool. And again, this was our first date. And so we had a great time. We got lunch, and then we literally ended up going back to his place and hooking up, you guys. I'm not always, I'm a big proponent of do whatever you want in terms of dating. I don't think there's a 3-date rule in my head. You can have sex with someone whenever you fucking want. I'm all for it. I'm very sex positive, obviously. However, this was a little bit out of the norm for me, especially because this was my first real experience, my real foray into polyamory, because I had just started officially dating this guy who was polyamorous. And so by proxy, I think in my head, I was like, oh, then I must be polyamorous. I have to be polyamorous. I assume that I can be polyamorous. And so I, was kind of trying to use the dating apps and trying to say, okay, he has other partners. I should probably have other partners, even though I think in the back of my mind, I knew that I didn't want to. And so I went on this date. I hook up with this guy. Everything's great. This guy is really into me, and I could tell. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is great. I'll definitely talk to you later. I'll text you, I'll call you, whatever. Honestly, I still feel, to this day, I still feel terrible about it. And I do hope that I didn't hurt his feelings too much, but I did ghost this guy. And he did try to call me and text me just a few times, not in a creepy, crazy way. But he definitely wanted to continue reaching out to me and being like, hey, I really felt like we had a connection, I'm kind of confused. And again, to this day, that was not cool of me. I'm not a proponent of ghosting at all. So I do feel bad about that. And part of it was, I think, just a lot of my insecurity in this polyamorous relationship, like me wanting to really establish my place as like a primary partner, which is a whole other episode topic in itself. It's a pretty toxic mentality within the polyamorous space, but I digress. Anyway, so that day I went on that date, had sex with this guy. And then I go see my ex, not my now ex at the time that I was dating, and he's sick as a dog, but I go into his apartment and I'm immediately just like, I just want to hang out with you. And so I spent a little bit of time with him. I like kissed him and everything, even though I knew he was like so sick, but I just could not, the entire time I was on that date, I couldn't stop thinking about him. And I couldn't stop thinking like, this guy is great. This guy is nice. This guy is cute. This guy is everything I could have possibly wanted in a partner. He's open to polyamory. He has experience in non-monogamy. Like, he sounds so ideal, and he's in front of me. He is so ideal. But all I can think about was my partner at the time, was the guy that I was dating. And so I go see him. I don't tell him that I've had sex with this guy, but I tell him, I went on a date and it was good. And that's all he knew. And I think I could tell that that's just about the extent of what he wanted to know at that time. And then I get in my car after, walk back to my car, get in my car, and my best friend calls me and we just kind of debrief about the date. I'm talking about it. I'm basically explaining this to her, recalling like, it was really great. And I feel like on paper, he's like the most perfect guy for me. Like, we fit so well. We had such a spark, such a connection, so many compatibility aspects. But I just couldn't stop thinking about the guy I was dating. And I just blurred out all of a sudden, I love him. And I was like, wait. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah. I'm in love with him. Like, oh my God. And I think in that moment, I like realized, I was like, that's how I know. When I just feel like I can breathe, like I can like breathe a sigh of relief. And I feel like I can just drop all my shit physically and metaphorically and just like be home and be safe. And like, that's my home base. Like, that's when I personally know that I am in love, is when that person is my safe space, as, cheesy as that sounds, as cliche. That person feels like home. They feel like I can just let the world off, let the stress off, take the load off, and just like exist. And I can exist, and they love me for existing. And I think that's when I know that I'm in love. And I feel this, I hope to feel the same way and be that same person for, my person. And I think in general, like, I think that you're in love when it's undeniable that you want that person to walk with you through every chapter of your life. And not only that, you definitely see yourself without a shadow of a doubt having the capability to love as many versions of them as possible. You not only want them to be with you as you change and grow and evolve as a person, but you want to and know you can be with them and love them through every version of themselves as well. And like, you just feel safe, you feel adored, not even just loved, adored by them and seen by them and heard by them. And again, it sounds cliche, but like, that is what I believe love is. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so hesitant to date lately, is because I feel like I'm kind of just holding out until I find that kind of dynamic, find that kind of environment, find that kind of relationship and connection. That's a little hard to find when you're swiping on Tinder. Okay, but enough about me. Now I want to read off some of the submissions that y'all sent me about the time that you knew you were in love with a partner, whether it be your current partner or an ex. So one of them from TikTok says, when I was around him, my soul felt calm. But the moment I knew was when the song Even When by Wheeler Walker Jr. came on Spotify one night. And he grabbed me so we could slow dance. But when the song dropped, she said, go listen to it if you haven't. I haven't listened to it yet, but I will after this. We absolutely just lost it together. I don't think I have ever laughed that hard with anyone, ever. Oh, that's really sweet. And I love, like, it's just those little moments where it's not a grand romantic gesture. It's not anything that's like super overwhelming. It's literally just a simple moment, being goofy with a partner and just laughing with them. and realizing, like, I think there's so many realizations that your subconscious makes in that moment. And I think that's just really, really sweet. And I love hearing these stories. Obviously, like I said, I love love. So thank you guys so much for submitting some of these stories. Okay, so another submission says, I was sitting on the couch in my underwear after work, working a terrible job as a school teacher. Oh my God, for those of you who know, I used to be a school teacher too, and I hated it, so I get it. I was sitting on the couch, eating Fruit Loops with sangria. This was at 22 years old. That's funny. And she came in and told me I should quit my job and she'd support me. I'm assuming he's talking about his partner. I was just out of college, no idea what to do with my degree, and didn't have any prospects. I told my roommate that night that I was going to marry her. Took her a few years to agree. Oh, that's sweet. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just, again, like, it's like those random moments where it doesn't have to be some like incredible thing, this big spectacle. It's just, you're like, wow, like, when you know, you know. And sometimes that saying isn't always true. Sometimes our intuition could be wrong, but sometimes it's really, really, really right. And it sounds like in that case, like, it was really right. That's so fun and sweet. And to find love so young, like, that really is such a blessing. That's so, I love that so much. Wow, that's cute. And there's another submission from TikTok. This person says, I met my current boyfriend in the middle of the pandemic. I had just broken up with my ex months prior. I was really depressed. I had lost all faith in men and dating. Retweet. He and I started talking after he added me on Snapchat after I posted my username on Instagram. He'd been following my page since 2019. We started talking for weeks, then months. On September 17th, 2020, specific, I like it, I was up at 4 a.m. and so was he. He would stay up late to game. I stayed up since I had really bad insomnia. We'd been talking for 3 months. In that moment, in my parents' living room, I was like, oh shit, I'm in love with this guy. And we've been together for 5 years. 6 years, November 24th, 2026. We started messaging each other in July of 2020. I found out I was in love with him September 17th. Wow, she remembers 2020. That's so cute. Met each other for the first time October 1st, 2020. Made our relationship official November 24th, 2020. We met when I was 21 and he was 24. I am now 27 and he's 30. We've been through a lot together these last few years, I'm sure. Oh, and she sent a picture too. That's so cute. I love that. Oh my gosh. And during COVID, that was such an interesting and different time, especially for relationships, because, you know, like Love is Blind came out, like quarantine was happening. So many people were either forced to really start a serious relationship because they were like stuck inside with their partner being quarantined together, or some people just decided to take the leap and move in together, or some people, like this girl, had a virtual relationship basically where it had to be long distance because we're all, you know, it's COVID times. So wow, that's so interesting. And that's pretty rare to figure out that you love someone without really, it sounds like, having met them in person yet. But it definitely happens, obviously. And I'm so glad that it worked out. That's so sweet that they've been together for that long. Those were some really sweet, I did get some more, but I think for the sake of time, we're going to keep it here for today. But I'm definitely going to do another episode with an expert interview on how you know you're in love, maybe the signs, and like psychologically and, you know, somatically, like in your body, how do you know all of these things, because sometimes it is hard to know, and sometimes, like I said, some people, it takes them time to develop that awareness that they truly like love that person deeply. And then sometimes you just know, like some of those stories, you just say it and you're like, this is my person, and that's that. So I think that's really awesome. And I'm going to leave this on a positive note in terms of future plans for Lex Be Real. Obviously, like I said, there's going to be plenty of interviews coming up, really exciting interviews. I am so stoked to share with you guys. We'll be releasing one weekly episode on Sundays, and I'll share some clips and some sneak previews on social media on my personal page for now. And I also am going to release some polls on both Instagram, TikTok, and on Spotify. If you use Spotify to listen, there is a poll option. So I'm going to add some polls every now and then so you guys can kind of help me come up with topics and different angles for things. And I will always be open to submissions from any listeners for questions you want answered by an expert, or stories you want to share, or questions you want me to answer if you have any specific for me. Go ahead and answer that poll. Once I release this episode, there will be a poll on Spotify for next week's episode. And thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next one.